Alright, what's up everybody? Don't expect this very often to get two videos kind of back to back, but the wife's being awesome. Let me hammer out one other video that a lot of people were asking about, and that's in regards to the Crossfire rucks and kind of the differences between some of them. I figured I'd kill two birds with one stone because a lot of people wanted to see kind of how the jungle kit rode on the body. So maybe you can see it. It's at a ride height that is pretty much right above my natural waistline. That way it sets on that load carriage shelf of my hips. In that article that I did on hitthewoodline.org, I kind of go into it a little bit more as far as why and the anatomical properties of that. As you can see, there's a good solid shelf right here for a pack to set on. It might be a little bit hard to see in the video, but the back of the belt sits just slightly higher than the front, about like that. The reason for that is when the pack goes on and it pushes down on it, it levels it all out. And then when I'm not wearing the pack, it's not really a problem. The pouches are just off to the side enough that I can raise my legs, and they tend to just kind of shift over to the side, so it's not an issue there. They also provide a nice little shelf for my support hand if I'm just walking. I can keep it kind of like this, and I can just rest my arm and the rifle on that. So I'll set this over to the side and get into the real reason behind the video. So Crossfire rucks. I'm not sponsored by them or anything like that. I'm not sponsored by anybody. So all this is just coming from me owning it and talking about kind of the nuances and differences of those. So Crossfire, I think they've added one, which is their Arctic ruck, but as it stands, they've got the DG1 Spitfire, which is their assault pack. I've got it in the house. I forgot to bring it out, and I'm not going to go grab it, but it's a lot like an Eagle yoke. It's just a small assault pack, capable of carrying a helmet, you know, some small supplies, spare ammo, hydration bladder, stuff like that. Pretty handy little pack. Especially if you're not running something like belt kit where you've got your sustainment stuff on your rig. If you're running like a plate carrier or a chest rig or something like that, you've got less sustainment on body, they come in really handy. It's also molly capable, so if you wanted to, you could molly it onto the back of a plate carrier, or like if you use their mule system, which is kind of just a load shelf that you put onto a frame. It's got a molly portion on there. I think you could probably put the Spitfire on that. Stepping up from there, you've got the DG3. The DG3 is a 3-day ruck, or what they classify as a 3-day ruck. I think that's being a bit off as far as their sizing goes. It's a 55-liter ruck. You can do 3 days with it. However, it's really seasonal dependent. If you are in winter weather or anything like that you're needing to carry bulky items, it's really hard to get 3 days out of that ruck. It's doable, especially if you have the detachable lid, because you can stack things on top of the ruck itself, but it's not the best. It's a center zip, kind of like you would see with something like a Mystery Ranch pack, where they've got a center zip. It doesn't fly like a Mystery Ranch, but it is center zip, which is handy for access, but at the same time it's annoying for load capacities at times. If you're trying to stuff a good bit in there and you're trying to zip it up, you run into some issues with that because of the overall capacity of the ruck. There's no sleep system pouch, and the water bottle pouches on the side do not handle 2-quart canteens very well. If you persuade them in there with some force, you can get them to work, but they don't work as well as like with the DG16 or the Mk7. So if you're someone like me that typically uses 2-quart canteens for extra water, that can be a bit of a problem. The flip side to that is canteens, Nalgene, stuff like that fit really well, but they're kind of loose, and if you're not careful, if you're tipping the pack or bending over something, they'll kind of jettison out. So you need to figure a way to kind of secure those. So for me, the DG3 is kind of like, it's a 1 to 3 day pack. It's definitely 3-day capable in the summer if I'm running super light, but it's more like a 1 to 2 day pack if I'm packing in winter layers or anything like that in there, if I'm having to bring a bulkier sleep system or anything like that. So keep that in mind. The next one would be the DG16. So I want to start with the fact that I'm going to start with the Mk7 because I only own one frame. I've got a DG16 and a Mk7 bag is kind of how it all worked out. The DG16 frame works for both the Mk7 and the DG16. It does not work with the DG3. DG3 is a scaled down version of the DG16 frame. Outside of that, it's the same properties and features. It's just a little bit smaller and a tiny bit lighter, but you don't get quite as much padding. And in my opinion, the 16 is a better frame than the DG3. It just distributes load and weight a lot better. So with that being said, I'll start with the Mark 7 to showcase the frame, then I'll grab the 16 bag, and then I'll come back to the Mark 7 and kind of talk about the differences between them. So this is my Mark 7. Let's see if I can get this back. This is the frame. I have removed the waist belt. It does have a hip belt that comes off of here that's removable. I removed that because I use the belt kit as my hip belt. I don't need the extra clippage and strap hell and everything else. It's a floating yoke system, which is really nice for comfort. It can also be adjusted for height, so it's currently in the short back configuration because it sets on a belt kit. Crossfire has a pretty good video as far as it's on their DG3 setup. It's the exact same thing across the board with the 16 frame set and the DG3 frame set. You can adjust it for ride height, so it's set to be shorter right now because it rests on my belt kit, and I'll show that at the very end of the video. Load lifter straps kind of work, kind of don't. They're a little bit short or high up in the end. They don't really pull like you see with a lot of the mystery range packs and hunting packs, that the frame set's quite a bit higher than the shoulders, and then the load lifter straps pull it in. The frame set's pretty even with the top of your shoulders, so they don't do just a ton, but they do help with some stabilization. Let's see here, the hip belt or the hip pads are very, very comfortable. I love these, especially on the 16, because on the DG3 you've got two. You've got one here and one here. The 16's got that third one right in the center, and these come out a little bit wider. It's a little bit more comfortable. They are adjustable for height as well, so when you adjust the shoulder straps, you can adjust the hip belt too to make that work for you. So that's kind of the frame. The 16 shoulder pads are a little bit beefier than the DG3 as well, in my experience. They're foam with a nice laminate material on the inside, so they're good and structured. And it's got a sternum strap on there. So I really like their harness system and everything. This is a super comfortable pack. Out of the ones I've done, the 16 frame is definitely my preferred. So let's see here. Let me go ahead and grab that 16 bag real quick, and then I'll bring the Mark 7 back in the frame after I'm done with that. So the 16 bag is a little bit of what you would call a jack of all trades, master of none pack. So it doesn't have a frame in it right now or on it right now, so it's a little bit weird. And I've just got some blankets stuffed in there to showcase kind of the volume. So one feature that you're seeing right now is something that's really nice about the 16. And it's something I'd forgot about till I actually got to talking to somebody in the Discord server yesterday about it. It's the fact that it's got this hidden lid. So if you did not want to use the floating lid system, this actually rolls up and secures via Velcro in the back. So if you had your floating lid setting on top of it, you don't have to utilize that. However, if you wanted to trim this down and not use the floating lid, you can just unvelcro this, and it's just nylon. There's no compartment or anything like that. Bring it over, clip it in, and now you've got something similar to, if you count the sleep system pouch in the top, similar to like a medium Alice or a little bit bigger. It can expand out, and it can expand up if you wanted it to. Ideally, I don't think you would. I think you would keep it as flush to the top of the frame as possible in this situation. This gets it closer to the DG3 capability, and that's what I was talking about with the jack of all trades, master of none. The 16, as well as the Mark 7, can be compressed down to basically the size below. The 16 can be compressed down to the DG3 size, and then it can expand out to its full potential, which is the 85 liters. So if you were to expand it out, it doesn't have as much outward expansion in my experience as the Mark 7, but it's got just as much, if not more, upward expansion. So if we get that out of the way, I'll hold this down here. You can kind of see just how freaking tall that bag can get. So this is if you were to maximize every bit and then cinch the snow skirt in. That's how much height you're going to get with it. When you compare that to the Mark 7 is only slightly taller, but it doesn't have that hidden lid capability, which is kind of one of those things that if you don't have a use for it, you don't have a use for it. If you do, you do. It's kind of handy. So if you wanted one pack to do kind of everything with, not do it all exceptionally well, but do everything with, the 16 is probably it. the sleep system compartment in the bottom unsnaps here and here for your compression, as well as to close it off. It's a single zipper. Let me find it. Here it is. It's a single zipper. If you open it up, like I said, I just got a blanket stuffed in there. It will hold, in my experience, it will hold the full USMC 20-degree bag and bivy. And if you really cram it in there, you can get like a Swagman or something like that in there if you need it. But it's super tight and it's not ideal for it. It will not hold, in my experience, the full modular sleep system that the Army uses, because it's kind of that 4-bag system. If you were to need to cram everything in there for super cold winter warfare or something like that, it's not going to work super well. However, if you're in the summer months where you only need like a bivy and a Swagman, or a bivy and a whoopee, or something like that, it will hold that and hold it extremely well. So it's got an internal compression here along with the zip. Now, the big issue that I have with the sleep system pouch on the 16 is the fact that internally it is not separate from the ruck, in the sense that it's a completely sealed unit. The Mk7 is a completely sealed sleep system unit. The DG16 is just a divider shelf. If they would make that a sealed unit like they did with the Mk7, where when you're not using the sleep system with the Mk7, it just kind of collapses into the bottom of the bag and you don't see it or need it, I think that they would really have a do-all pack with the 16. Especially because the end user could add pouches as they need to increase the load carriage capability. But because they do it the way they do, where it's just a removable shelf on the 16, if you have like wet items, so like let's say it rains and you only have a bivy and a Swagman or something like that, and you're stuffing it in there, anything that's not waterproofed on the inside of your pack is going to get wet, and it's just going to increase humidity buildup and clamminess and crap like that. It's not a big killer, but it's something to factor in and think about. That's really one of the few knocks that I have against, hold on. Sorry about that, guys. All right. That's one of the few knocks that I have against the DG16, is the fact that that's not a completely separate unit. I can deal with the size for the most part, especially in my area. The times that I need a full, like super cold sleep system or winter weather gear is pretty few and far between, but it is there. I can make do with the 16 though. The other gripe that I have, and I don't know why they did it the way they did, because I have yet to really see a use for it, is if you can see, there are two compression systems here for the lid. So you've got one that you can cinch off here, and then a secondary cinch off at the top. In my experience, all this does is get in the way. It's just extra cords everywhere. And while it's not a huge issue, it's a hassle and it's kind of an annoyance to have one here. You've got to tuck it in here and tuck it in here. And then if you cinch this one down, this one loosens up and stuff like that. It's just kind of an annoyance. Really, you don't need the second one in my opinion. The top one cinch down and then just flatten that down and bring your lid over, even if you're using the detachable lid, works just fine. I don't really see a whole lot of use for it. I wish that they had on the detachable lid, this is hook, if you can hear that, that's hook Velcro there, which when the lid's rolled up, it Velcros it to the top of that and keeps it out of the way. However, when you are using the the hidden lid and it's over that, it rubs. So is it really a stealth issue? Not so much, I don't think. I think once it's stable, you wouldn't hear it as much, but anytime anything rubs against that, you really get that, sorry, my battery's turned up. You really get that that noise, and it makes it kind of distracting and hard to hear. So apart from that, it's the same setup, setting up on the frame. It does have dual water bottle pockets on each side compared to the Mk7 that only has one, and that's because of how the Mk7 sleep system works. So let me set this over to the side. I'll bring the Mk7 up real quick. Hopefully I can get this done before the battery dies. And we will talk about that. Okay, so right now my Mk7 is set up for a heavy 3-day that can be easily expanded with food and water to a week or more. It's 47 pounds. I've got the DG16 lid on top. The only difference between the Mk7 lid and the DG16 lid is the fact that the Mk7 lid, when you buy the full Mk7, comes with the Claymore pouch that sits on top. I currently have a E-tool on the top of mine. Apart from that, there's no real difference. It has sewn on external pouches on the back that do have pass-throughs all the way through, so if you need to slip an axe or a machete or something through there, you could, no problem. And then it has MOLLE on sustainment pouches that come with it to go on the side. talked about the sleep system being a sealed unit. It's got one water bottle pouch on the side. And then the reason for that is because of how the sleep system works on this one. Instead of being a front load, it's a side load. And it's also larger. I can fit the entire USMC sleep system plus the Swagman into the Mk7 sleep compartment. It's sealed off. And then you stuff it in there, you roll it up. It's got a water bag or a waterproof bag that it ships with that you can use. I'm utilizing it right now just because why not. You roll it up, cinch it down, and clip it, and then you're done. It is a little bit bigger. I've got it cinched down right now to fit just the Swagman and the Bivy because that's all I really need right now. The compression system I like because these are actually, this one's not, but for the most part, they are retained. You just kind of run them back through and you don't have tails running around everywhere. I think, yeah. I was adjusting it, I didn't put it back, so that's my bad. As far as capability goes, let me go ahead and just remove the lid real fast, and I'll show you how high up the bag can go. So it's actually not as tall as the 16, but it can compress outward more. So the way to think about the bag sizes is the 16 can compress really up, or can expand up to the full Mk7 size, especially if you add pouches to the outside of it. It's not necessarily made to, in my opinion, but it can. The Mk7 can compress down to the DG16 size. The DG16 can compress down to the DG3 size. When they talk about that, really what you're getting into is the 16 is a DG3 with a sleep system built into the bottom of it. The Mk7 is a DG16 with a sleep system built into the bottom of it. The main difference between them is the external pouches being sewn on that you can't remove. That's kind of, you know, one way or the other, however you like it or not. And then the external pouches that can be added to it. If I had to say which one to get, say like, okay, hard stop, I can only afford one pack, which one's it going to be? I'd probably go with the DG16. I played with both of them. I like the Mk7 for certain reasons. I really like the sleep system compartment of the Mk7 compared to the DG16, but I can get by with using the DG16 because everything internally on my pack I keep waterproofed anyway, so it's not a huge ordeal. So yeah, if I had to pick one, it would be the 16. So if you're watching this and you're wondering, hey, which one would you get, that's it. Crossfire makes excellent packs. One thing I didn't mention is the frame is actually scalloped out to accept a SAPI plate, so the SAPI plate will rest in there, so if somebody uses a plate carrier, you can do that. Or the way Counting Coup has been showing just lately is he has one of those Q Performance ice plates that he puts in there on his Malice pack, and I think I'm going to get one to try out to negate the issue that you have with the bladder rupturing inside the pack. And I'll slip that in right there and keep it tucked away, and that will be my water system with the pack. So going forward, I may actually go ahead and switch back to the 16 bag and try that for a little bit, especially with the built-in day lid, or the built-in lid that it comes with, and run it like a hot weather Alice pack. So anyways, I hope that helps. I'll go ahead and, like I said, it's going to be kind of a sloppy thing because I took the lid off and tossed it aside. But I'll go ahead and show, I've got time, the frame, or the bag setting on the belt kit. Kind of adjust it around, and now of course it's all sloppy as crap, but maybe you can see it sitting there on top of the belt kit. You see what I'm talking about when I say the bag sits on that like a shelf. Let me go ahead and kind of adjust it down, cinch it down. There we go. And that's how it sits. It sits right on the belt. I can move my arms. I can free swing. I've got no real weight or pull on my arms or my shoulders. All the weight's hitting the belt, which is driving into my hips, which is really, really nice and stable. So you guys, I hope that helps. If you liked it, let me know. If you don't, let me know. And take it easy. I'll try and get more out there. As always, go check out hitthewoodline.org. Follow us on there. Follow us on Instagram and Discord. And take it easy.